So tell us, because I'm really interested in this to the extent you can, like, let's say some young kid is just about to get in the military as an officer, and he or she has as their goal to ultimately become a general flag officer. What advice or suggestions would you have for people that see that as something they might want to pursue?
The first thing I tell junior officers that are thinking about that is, hey, first thing you need to do is be a good platoon leader.
Yeah.
Okay. Be the best at whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
And I say that because my very first commander told me the exact same thing. He said, look, whatever position you're in, be the best at whatever it is you're doing. If you're the food service officer, you be the best food service officer in the Army.
Yeah.
You know, if you're a platoon leader, you be the best platoon leader in the Army. If you are, you know, a transportation coordinator, be the best transportation coordinator in the Army.
I've heard that phrase a couple times because of my involvement in sports. I've heard it stated as, you got to block and tackle before you can run the ball. So
Absolutely.
you got to learn how to block and tackle first, right?
Because you're going to fall back on those basic skills that you learn as a young lieutenant all the way through your career, and you just build upon that. That's what leadership's all about. You're constantly learning. You're a lifelong learner. You never stop learning in your journey up the ranks as a leader. You're always falling back on the lessons you've learned beforehand, but then you're also learning new lessons along the way. I learned a lot of different lessons as a strategic leader, starting at Central Command, that were far different from what I had learned as a tactical leader at the brigade, battalion, and company level beforehand. But like still, a lot of those leadership principles transcend over into the strategic level nonetheless.
And one of the things that I think maybe people that, like I grew up in a military family, mom, dad, granddad, uncle, a bunch of people in the military, but people that aren't in the military may not appreciate that when you start off as a commissioned officer, particularly in the Army and the Marines, you're in charge of a bunch of enlisted men and women. And the enlisted men and women, they come from all walks of life, from all over the place. It's a super diverse group of people. And so your responsibility is essentially to take people that have nothing in common or are from all different sorts of places and backgrounds and stuff like that, and to make them a unit. And you want to talk about leadership and learning leadership quickly. So talk a little bit about, if you don't mind, when you're a platoon officer, how it is that you get all these people from all these different backgrounds to work together as a unit.
Yeah, you know, I always tell the story that when I got commissioned, my father, who was a retired master sergeant, as he's pinning on my gold bar as a second lieutenant, he told me, he said, son, let me give you one piece of advice that I think will serve you well as you become a leader in our Army. I said, what's that, Dad? He said, take care of your men and your men will take care of you.
Nice.
And that, you know, that served me well for 31 years in the United States Army, you know, and it's probably one of the biggest things that I talk about when it comes to leadership, and that's take care of your people and your people will take care of you. And taking care of your people covers a lot of territory.
For sure.
You've got to be able to talk to your people. You've got to be able to understand your people and listen to them. And when I talk about taking care of people, I tell junior leaders, that doesn't mean you coddle them, you treat them differently, you let them off easy. You have to hold them to standard. You have to hold them to the standard, make sure they're doing the job they get paid to do, and they're doing it well. And make sure they understand that they are part of a much bigger organization than just themselves. Yeah. That they are part of a team where everybody on that team is working together to make the organization successful. And I use as an example, this thing called the four-man stack. And I show a picture of these four soldiers who are about to enter a room and kick in the door and go in there, and anybody that's in there that's going to try to do them harm is going to go down. And on that team, every single soldier has an assigned sector of fire. And if one soldier fails to cover their assigned sector of fire, they put the entire team at risk.
Yep.
Good soldiers could die. And I say, you know, everybody's daily situation of leadership is not that dire, but everybody should be thinking about, how do I bring everybody together in a team to where they truly feel valued and they feel like I'm part of a great team here where I've got to do my part or I'm going to let my team members down, and fully understanding that if we all do this together, we'll be successful. No different than a football team or a baseball team or a military team. Pick your team out there everybody's got to understand that, hey, listen, I'm part of something bigger than just myself.
Yeah.
And I've got to be thinking more than just myself. It's about my teammates next to me, to my left and to my right.
Yeah.
And it is about the bigger organization as a whole, and all of us being successful together.
What a great notion there. And, you know, I've said this a couple of times on a couple of the podcasts. It wasn't until I was in my late 30s, General, that I started to have a revelation that, hey, knucklehead, Brian, it's not all about you, man. Life is not what you can do for yourself. It's what you can do for other people. And I think you learn that when you're in the Corps Cadets or in the military or in sports teams. It didn't really sink in for me because I've got kind of a thick head sometimes about some of these things. But what a great notion that, you know, one of the lessons, the leadership lessons you learn in the military is there's a greater purpose. It's not just about what you can do for yourself. There's a mission that is that is outside of you, above you, that is greater than you, and you're working towards a common goal. So, but you were talking earlier about becoming a good platoon officer and then a good company commander, and I kind of interrupted you, and you didn't get to finish the answer about how to become a general flag officer. So finish that off if you don't mind, General Ramirez.
Yeah, and again, for me, what I tell again junior officers is, you know, as you're going up the ranks, you need to be the best at what you are, the best at what you're doing at the time. But also, it's also about continuing to learn. You've got to be studying and learning the entire way.
Love that.
I know that may sound rather monotonous, but you know, you have to become a lifelong learner, because if you stop learning, you basically are done.
You're done. You're done. I love that so much, General. I love that so much.
You've got to be learning the entire time. And again, it's not easy. It's like I tell, you know, when cadets take command of an organization, I say, you know, this is your first day of command. And it doesn't mean that all of a sudden you turn a switch and you just had a revelation that makes you the best company commander out there. No, you've got a lot to learn as you're going along. And some of it's going to be hard lessons learned, but you've got to be learning every single day.
That's why, as lawyers, General, we call it the practice of law, because you're always, if you're doing your job, you're always trying to get a little bit better. You know, having run a business for almost 20 years now, I love that, because my thought is, if we're not constantly trying to learn how to get a little bit better every day, then I feel like not only are we stagnant, but we're actually going backwards, because there's going to be other folks that are going to be working hard to learn how to become better at business. And so if you stop learning, you're not just stagnating, you're probably going backwards in a way, right?
I agree. And not only that, but your organization is going backwards. The people you lead are going backwards.
That's right.
You know, you've got a bigger responsibility to your people and your organization, not just to yourself. And so, you know, there was no magic formula for me to become a general officer. In fact, if you'd have told me as a young lieutenant that I would become a general officer, I'd have laughed at you and said, ain't going to happen, man. Ain't in the cards.
Yeah.
But I firmly believe that a lot of it had to do with the fact that I did my utmost best to be the best at whatever I could, at whatever I was doing. And also I did my best to try to take care of my people. I wanted to know that I cared about them more than just, okay, you're the guy that's going to go out there and do this job for me. I truly cared about them, and I wanted to make sure that they were successful as well. And I truly tried to instill that sense of loyalty throughout my organization as I went up in rank. And again, probably the biggest transition for me was going to a joint headquarters at U.S. Central Command and seeing leadership at a strategic level, and how you've got to be able to engage multiple types of people in multiple sets of environments, and deal with a complex set of situations and problem sets that aren't necessarily the kind of things that they prepare you for as you go into that position. You know, I watched some phenomenal general officers do some incredible things and offset some potentially hot button items brilliantly and diplomatically. And they were wearing a uniform, but they could have easily had on a coat and tie.
Yeah.
And done the same job. So I don't think there's any particular formula for becoming a general officer. Again, what I tell folks is be the best at whatever it is you're doing at the time.
I've been thinking about over the past couple years. I'm 47 now, General, and so I'm kind of, I don't feel like I'm middle aged, but I guess I am. But I've been thinking about, and particularly in my role as a father to three children, what kind of principles uh, one could live a good life by. And so I'm trying to search for simple principles. And you said something. I mean, like what you just said is literally exactly one of the main things that I've been thinking about a lot is, you know, doing the best you can with the talents, the God-given talents, and the skills and things that you've been given, whether you are working at McDonald's, whether you are a general flag officer, whether you're a lawyer, whether you're a high school athlete or student, you know, trying to do the best you can with what you've been given is a pretty, I think, a pretty good guiding principle in life, not just in the military, but everywhere. What do you think about that?
I think it fits perfectly with what we've been talking about in terms of whatever position you're given. Because in the military, when you're assigned to a unit and a position, you normally don't get much say in that.
Yeah.
If you get told, okay, Ramirez, you're going to be the battalion maintenance officer. Okay, well, that's not exactly what I wanted, but if I'm going to be the battalion maintenance officer, then I'm going to be the best battalion maintenance officer in the Army.
Exactly.
And that's where you got to plant yourself and say, okay, I'm going to learn everything about the job, and I'm going to go at it with 100% of my energy and my talent, and do the best I can at this job.
Yeah.
And I used to tell the junior officers, if you're doing that, everything else will take care of itself.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Everything else will take care of itself. And I use that because I went in as a battalion maintenance officer one time, and I was like, oh my God, that's not the job I wanted. But I said, okay, I'm going to take this on, and I'm going to be the best maintenance officer in the Army. And I was fortunate to have some very, very good people that were maintenance types that taught me a lot about what it means to be a good maintenance officer. And I will tell you, I'll always be grateful for that. But again, it all comes down to what you mentioned. Just be the best at what you're doing at the time. Use the talents that you've been given, and continue to learn and grow along the way, and everything else will take care of itself.